Boycott is a form of collective action or protest in which individuals, groups, or communities intentionally refrain from buying, using, or dealing with a product, service, company, or country as a means of expressing disapproval, disagreement, or solidarity with a particular cause or issue. The aim of a boycott is to exert economic or social pressure on the target, with the hope of bringing about change or influencing their behavior. The term boycott originated during the Irish Land War of 1880, when Irish tenant farmers led by Charles Boycott refused to deal with their landlord's estate in County Mayo, Ireland. The word boycott became associated with this form of protest, and it has since become a prominent strategy in civil rights movements, labor movements, environmental activism, and human rights campaigns worldwide. Boycotts can take various forms. Consumer boycotts. Consumers consciously choose not to buy or use products or services from a particular company or country due to ethical, environmental, or political reasons. Consumer boycotts often aim to influence corporate behavior, such as improving labor conditions or promoting sustainable practices. Labor boycotts. Workers may engage in a labor boycott by refusing to work or participate in a strike against an employer to protest unfair labor practices, low wages, or inadequate working conditions. Economic boycotts. Governments or organizations may implement economic boycotts against specific countries or entities, restricting trade and financial transactions, often in response to human rights abuses, territorial disputes, or violations of international law. Sporting or cultural boycotts. Sporting events, cultural performances, or academic conferences may be boycotted to express dissent or protest against a host country's policies or actions. Academic boycotts. Academics and scholars may refuse to participate in collaborations, conferences, or other academic activities with institutions or scholars from countries involved in controversial practices. The effectiveness of boycotts can vary depending on factors such as the level of participation, the strength of public sentiment, and the impact on the target. Successful boycotts can lead to changes in corporate practices, policy reforms, or diplomatic actions. However, boycotts also face criticisms. Detractors argue that they may disproportionately affect vulnerable populations, such as workers or farmers, who rely on the targeted industry or product for their livelihoods. Additionally, some boycotts may inadvertently lead to job losses, economic disruptions, or exacerbate tensions between nations. Boycotts are closely linked to freedom of expression and the right to peaceful protest. When conducted within the bounds of the law and without resorting to violence, boycotts are a legitimate and nonviolent means for individuals and communities to participate in social and political change. In conclusion, a boycott is a form of collective protest involving the intentional refusal to engage with a product, service, company, or country in order to express dissent, solidarity, or promote change. Boycotts can be a powerful tool to effect economic and social change, but their success hinges on public support, strategic planning, and adherence to nonviolent principles. As a means of peaceful protest, boycotts continue to play a significant role in advocating for various social, political, and environmental causes around the world.